Hello, welcome along to episode 239 of Adventures in Pop. My name is Simon Jacobs, and in this episode, I want to start with this. This is the sound of a Lana Del Rey concert, a very big Lana Del Rey concert that I went to as she did the first of two nights at Wembley Stadium. Now, just a little bit of context here. Lana Del Rey is doing a UK tour of big stadia in this country, culminating in these two nights at Wembley Stadium. She's done them now. I'm recording this on Saturday morning. And I went along on the first night, on Thursday night, and it was an extraordinary thing. It was certainly an adventure in pop. I have to tell you, my experience of this, I would say, frankly, quite bizarre night in the company of Lana and I guess about 80,000 people, because herein lies the tale. Wembley Stadium, I'm sure you know this, Wembley Stadium is one of, maybe the largest stadium in Europe. Back in the day, we would go and see people like, Michael Jackson and Madonna at Wembley Stadium, and these were the top superstars in the world, and they would put on a show because it's a large space to fill. You've got to do something larger than life to visually come alive in that huge cavernous bowl of a stadium. Whether it was the old Wembley Stadium or the new Wembley Stadium, it's still very big and it holds a lot of people. So the question was, Lana Del Rey, with her kind of languid, I'm going to end up using the word languid rather a lot, I think, her languid style of, performance and the even just the tone of her musicality, you just think, how on earth is she going to project herself, come alive in this huge space, when, unlike Michael Jackson and Madonna, she doesn't dance. There isn't really music that you can dance to. There isn't anything she does that has a particularly strong dancing rhythm. So what's she going to do? How's she going to fill this space? How's she going to represent her oeuvre in this cavernous place? So look, I want to be really fair about this because I did find it totally bewildering. I mean, that's, I guess, spoiler alert. I literally didn't really know how this was working for people. So I need to give you some facts here. One is that even when I got on the tube at my stop to head towards Wembley Stadium, I noticed straight away in the carriage a high preponderance of, I have to say, thin white girls, young, like late teenage, maybe early 20s, wearing their white dresses, wearing daisies in their hair, and I knew immediately that they were all going to the same place that I was, which was Wembley Stadium. And as we got nearer, obviously the numbers grew and grew and grew, but it was definitely a thing. And it's a thing where you feel a little bit like you're joining a cult that you never knew that you joined. In fact, you hadn't joined. You've just accidentally turned up with this cult. I wonder whether this is the same feeling as if I'd gone to see Taylor Swift, which I didn't. But on this occasion, here I was, feeling a little bit like probably the oldest person in the room, thinking, okay, I'm not really the target audience here, but I'm so intrigued. I don't dislike Lana Del Rey's music. I like some of the tracks. But I guess I would also say that I'm amazed that she has sustained a career, plugging that style that she has. She has a very singular style. She's never really wavered from it. It's this kind of, damsel in distress torch song, femme fatale. Everything is graceful and slow, and some of it is beautiful. But how does that come across in this huge space? And what I'm trying to get across to you is I guess the fanatical nature of her audience, and this is what really overwhelms me. I think this is what makes it all possible. Of course, she's got such a strong and dedicated fan base that she can fill 2 nights in Wembley Stadium with people who know every word of every song and are really there to celebrate it. They're going to sing it at the top of their voices, because if there's one thing that Lana doesn't do, it's sing at the top of her voice. And we'll come on to this in a moment, because there were some issues, I think, generally. But okay, let's stay with the positives. The number one positive is this audience absolutely adores her. And I would say the audience was mainly, kind of, I guess, average, 20s. And that average was probably lifted up rather a lot by quite a lot of mums and dads who I think were here with their teenage daughters. And that it was quite sweet to see, because, the mums and dads who were coming along seemed to be a little invested in Lana as well. They weren't just there going, oh, when's this going to be over? They were into it. So it was a very, very dedicated and enthusiastic audience. And at some moments in the concert, I swear that it was among probably the loudest sound I'd ever heard from a crowd. Just the general shouting when she first emerged, through to the sort of the adulation over various different songs that she was singing, and then the crowd joining in and singing everything. It got very loud, and that in itself, I have to say, is extraordinarily impressive. I just think that's real love. So those are real big plus points. I also think the stage set was very interesting. Basically, what you had on the stage was a house. You felt like you had been taken back in time, probably to the 1950s, this kind of strange, mysterious world that Lana inhabits. It's probably the 1950s. We're probably in a southern states mansion somewhere, in a swamp. It did look like we were in a Louisiana swamp, basically, in a rickety wooden house. And at one stage, we have a couple of things going on there. There's a tornado, we see a storm, and at one stage, the house burns down. And through all of this, Lana just sort of comes and goes. Occasionally she goes into the house, sometimes comes out of the house, sits on her front porch. She is supported, and very strongly supported, by 3 black girls who do the backing vocals, and had, I think, very good voices, but it was hard to hear each of them individually. Again, come back to that in just a moment. So there was Lana and her 3 backing vocalists, all in their white dresses, just sauntering from one place to another, just following, walking in a line down that way and then coming back down this way. And she'd sit on her swing and sing another song, or sit at the table, go into the house, come out of the house. It was all very languid, is the word. I was kind of imagining a very hot day in a Louisiana swamp, and, it's getting very moist out there. That was the kind of vibe that it was giving. And it was a really imaginative way of using the stage, although I would say it didn't have very much elevation. So sometimes it was very hard, if you're standing on the floor of the stadium, as we were, very hard to really see anything. You're drawn to the screens rather than actually watching what's on stage, because you can't see what's on stage, frankly. It's just a bit too low down. You've got too many heads in the way. But the main problem is that the sound of the band and Lana's voice just got swamped by 90,000 people who wanted to sing along, and they did a great job. And really, when you go back to that little piece of audio that I played at the beginning, what you're getting there is the sound of a crowd, and you can't hear Lana Del Rey or her band at all. And for large parts of this concert, we couldn't hear them. We literally could not hear that they were playing, because the sound of this audience, in its full-throated love and devotion, drowned out the sound of the band. Now the band should have been louder, but the other problem was that Lana's voice was awash. It was in a soup of reverb. So even when she tried to talk between the songs and say, how much she loves us in London, you just got this booming, reverbing sound, formless sound, coming from somewhere over there, and you couldn't make head or tail. I mean, you couldn't hear any of it distinctly enough to make out actual words. So it was a strange, massively enthusiastic concert where really nothing much happened on stage because, as I say, no actual dancing. There's a drummer in the band. I it's rude of me to say this, but I think that's an easy gig for a drummer because there's not much to do. Most of the songs have a grand and orchestral, quite majestic feel to them, but it didn't come across. I would say at Wembley Stadium, and I think there were a few times during the concert where I thought, if we were in a really appropriate place, if we're in a much, much smaller venue and it's late at night and it's like a bit of a dive bar, this would be, mesmerizing. It would be sensational, but it has got lost in this enormous place, where what we were seeing around us, people were dancing like, fanatical, crazy people around us. But it almost was like, they were dancing to their own sound of this. They were dancing to the sound they could hear of mostly audience participation. But enthusiastic, this gets 11 out of 10 for that. As a spectacle for the neutral, it is simply, it's bewildering. It really is. It was a very, very strange night. And I have one or two other, I guess, slight issues with the whole Lana Del Rey thing, which is, look, she has ploughed her singular vision, that's a mixed metaphor, isn't it? Ploughed her furrow with her singular vision. And she's done that incredibly successfully over years and years. She's got a back catalogue now of these albums that all have a very Lana Del Rey kind of signature feel. But some of that I find strange because, look, behind all of this majestic and beautiful music, there's always been this ominous undertone of things not being right, of tragedy and maybe of violence. Now, I quite sort of like the darkness that comes from some of her music, but I also think it comes with a big chunk of 1950s sort of iconography, which does I think include women being more objectified and having their traditional role. The woman is at home, the man is bad and goes out and does bad things. That kind of 1950s feel I could probably do without. But if you're going to go back to the 1950s, it's appropriate that you include some of those characteristics of that time. But it's not something that I would want to go back and applaud or worship, at this particular period of our history. So I have a bit of a problem with that, and maybe that's irrelevant. I also think her music is a bit samey and somber, but it does have its moments of majesty and power, and very hard to kind of make that out in the enormous space that is Wembley Stadium. I want to play you another little sound piece because this is probably one of her most popular songs. So here's a little touch of Lana Del Rey singing Summertime Sadness. Can you hear Lana? No, nor can I. And on that note, I will love you and leave you. It was a fun night out anyway. Thank you, Lana Del Rey. I'm not trying to be rude about you. It's just go and play a small place. Go and play a small venue. It'd be much, much better for everybody. Until next time, I will be back very, very soon. Take it easy. Bye bye.